Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, xenomorphs and predators, welcome back to Unsheathed. This rendition is featuring Tim, owner of GoodWorks. He makes, I think fanny packs would be disrespectful of a term. It's referred to as boogie bags. Tim, I've been following his page, GoodWorks, and I've really been attracted, besides his products, his level of authenticity and connection with his community through the rucking realm. And after talking with Tim for a while, I decided that he's got a story that's worth sharing. So, Tim, welcome to Unsheathed, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. This is rad. One of the things for GoodWorks for me is what you mentioned is the connection, the connectivity to the community, and I've sent out a survey recently that I think you filled out, and so because I'm trying to get information from my customers and potential customers about like what I can be doing better, and one of the overwhelming responses that I've gotten is connectivity, accessibility, and involvement with community, and it's really surreal and humbling and fulfilling that there's even like a community that's coming around GoodWorks. And when I started the business, I didn't think of that. I wanted to get there eventually, but I didn't expect it to work out in the way that it's been working out. So having people notice that is really just a next level thing for me.
Yeah, man, and that's awesome. Before we dive into who Tim is and what makes Tim click, you might as well tell some of the uneducated people what is GoodWorks.
So I've been trying to think of a two sentence description of my business. I haven't gotten there quite yet, but GoodWorks essentially makes. That's my sump pump, by the way, is a normal feature in my my videos. So GoodWorks is just me. I make everything by hand in the States. I try to source everything with the States. When I say make things, I make nylon and polyester heavy duty soft goods. You already mentioned the boogie bag, which is my current flagship item, which is, for lack of a better term, a bomb-proof hip pack that has been tested and tried for hundreds of hours during multiple endurance events. And I'm really proud of them. I'm really proud of the people who wear them. And every time somebody speaks about it, like it's a really, really rewarding thing. So I make stuff. I make soft goods for organization. And another facet of GoodWorks is contributing to the community. So I've helped. I haven't raised personally, but I've helped facilitate over $10,000 being donated to nonprofits. And that's also a large part of GoodWorks is giving back and serving.
Awesome, brother. Right off the bat, since people are seeing you, obviously you've got the hat. What's the hoodie? Promo number 2.
Yeah, for the
We Defy the Norm.
For the dude Cody, and We Defy, man. His story is phenomenal, and he and I are only like I speak with him pretty regularly, but initially he and I are only like a degree apart. So one of his friends, one of the guys that he's worked with for years, Dustin, I know through the GoRuck community. So there's a small degree of separation, and then when I found his account and I found We Defy the Norm, like it was game over. I love Cody's message. I love his personal page and his business. I have, I think, 16 of his shirts and hoodies now, and I'm waiting on another 2 because he just dropped like 2 that are super rad. So like I could wear one of his shirts a different shirt every day for almost. I'm getting to the point where I'm at like 3 weeks now. So it's. Yeah. I gotta. And this was the most. And I thought about this, and I'm like, this is gonna be the most appropriate time to wear this hoodie.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Watch it.
Half of my t-shirts are from Cody.
Yeah,
I can't keep up with it, dude.
absolutely. Every time I place an order, I want to say like the next day or 2 days later, he drops another design. I'm like, dude, stop.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, give me a chance.
It's like, please just drop them all at once so I can just make like a big order and then it's just done. But no, it's just like, hey, look at this one. No, look at this. It's like, damn it. It's ridiculous, and I love it. And I mean, it's ridiculous in the best possible way.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shout out to Cody who runs We Defy the Norm. Make sure you check his page out as well. Every name that we talk about on here, I will include all their handles. I think that's the term. So you can check all these people out because, of course, the people we talk about are people that are worth listening to their stories. So, Tim, prior to Good Works, who are you?
Man, so grew up in like Metro Detroit area. Before Good Works, I was a photojournalist for about a decade. Worked for a lot of publications. The majority of my body of work went to the Detroit Free Press because they were local to me. I used to string for them. I was shooting for them all the time. I've also worked for the Detroit News, Associated Press, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times, ESPN, Bosch, Gargoyles Eyewear. I worked a bit for GoRuck. I've worked for other international publications. I've worked for I've worked for many news organizations over the years, and that whole thing is I'm not like a huge fan of the news media because of what it's turned into, but I'm not going to go off on that tangent. The exit from that was a direct response to coronavirus. But kind of rewinding a little bit, at the beginning of my photo career, I started shooting it professionally, shooting like being hired by outlets in 2011. That same year, I got a TBI. I got a brand new saddle for my bike. I was into cycling at the time. I had like a really gnarly single speed that I really loved. Oh no, it was a different bike I had. Anyway, so I got a new saddle, wanted to try the saddle out. So just installed it, hopped on my bike, went around the neighborhood. And the next thing that I can remember is waking up in the ICU. From what I could gather from the damage that was on my bike and from the damage that was on me is that I got hit by a car. So I had a contusion. I had a contusion on my head. So I had an internal brain bleed. Thankfully, it wasn't an external brain bleed.
Yeah.
So that happened. I couldn't walk straight for weeks. It changed how I perceive light. So my eyes became much more sensitive to light. I used to be able to go to concerts and be totally fine. Now, if I go to concerts, I have to wear like sunglasses, especially like if they're like spraying the crowd with light, because like I can like feel my eyes hurt, and like, like it's awful. So I have a crazy sensitivity to light, but on the positive side of that, it helped me. Something got changed, and I was able to see light differently. So I remember sitting on the couch like the week after that happened, and I had one of my cameras, and I was just like noticing light differently than I had before. So there was like a little upside to that.
Okay. What year was that? If you don't.
2011.
Okay.
So it was actually Friday the 13th. It was Friday the 13th, 2011. Yeah.
Okay.
And at the time, I worked for a flooring wholesaler. I was their warehouse manager. So I was just like pulling rolls of carpet, pulling hardwood off the racks, and like loading people up and managing inventory and stuff like that. Photography was a hobby, like, and a passion of mine, because who hasn't had at some point in their life a passion for photography? And then I lost my job. They fired me while I was out on medical leave. And then because of that, I had this really brilliant and fortunate padding, because I had lost wages from my insurance because my car insurance covered it. So I kind of had this like little bit of like cushion where I could pursue the photography. And then through then I just started just building that up, and then I worked for a lot of people, but not like the most successful career in it. But that was kind of built up to it. But yeah, the brain injury changed a lot of stuff. So it changed like my temperament. It had, has long-term lasting effects. And as a kid, I've always been a big dude. I've never been really fit. I've never been overly athletic. My self-esteem and like my confidence has usually been on the bottom side, aside from certain things. Like, I think a lot of people have like an overall confidence, and then some people don't have that, but they're confident in certain things that they do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at. Is I have confidence in certain aspects of my life, but not like an overall confidence. And that really exacerbated that. It definitely changed how my mind works and how my mind perceives things. And it definitely made me more, and I could just be justifying my actions by saying this, or I could be justifying like things that I've done, but I feel like it's made me more direct and less tolerant of things. And it has certainly affected my inner dialogue and my internal speech, and how I relate to myself inside my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you, if you're willing to share, do you have a family?
I do. So I'm married. I have a wife. We've been married for 3 years. She's my second wife. I've been married previously. My first marriage didn't work out. And that was, so my TBI happened during that marriage. And I think, again, I could be making excuses. I could be, this is something that I really need to like invest my time in thinking about and writing about. I want to dig more into that, because my first marriage, I think, was a failure. So I want to dig into why. And I kind of know why, but I want to really know. So I think that had a big effect on that. What were we talking about again? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, the reason why I'm asking about the family is
the
Mrs. Goodworks.
Yeah,
Nikki, how is she, as you know, with the TBI changing a lot of aspects? How is she with it?
Well, she hasn't known me otherwise.
Yeah.
So we met in 2016. So she knows me post brain injury. So she knows me
for you
as well. We all have different like stages and processes in our lives, right? And we all have we're different people, for lack of a better term, at different points in our lives. We have these points in our lives when we're feeling, mentally strong, emotionally strong, physically strong. So we have a confidence. And then we have times when we feel like we're not that. We feel like we're either, I don't want to say vulnerable, because vulnerability isn't necessarily a weakness. I don't think that vulnerability is an antithesis to strength. However, I think we just have these different phases and ebbs and flows in our lives where we're the same person, but we may act differently dependent on how we feel we fit into our lives. So I think that, as she knows me, post TBI, she understands that I'm a stubborn bastard. I tend to be, if I make up my mind on something, unless I'm given some sort of like irrefutable evidence contrary to my mind, I won't budge. So she's accustomed to that. And I've been doing a lot of work on my mind. And because this last year has been a very, for many of us, right? So 2020, we thought was, at the end of 2020, we're like, it's over. It's 2020, like everything's going to go back to normal. We're good to go. It's going to be 2021 is going to be the year. And for a lot of us, 21 was worse than 2020.
Yeah.
And in my head and my heart, it was 2021 was one of the most significant years of my life. Now, on one side, it was absolutely one of the best years of my life. And on the other side, simultaneously, it was one of the worst years of my life. So the reason that it was fantastic is because of GoodWorks.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been able to, so GoodWorks started in 2020. So to kind of like give a little bit of background and how this is relevant. GoodWorks started in 2020 because my photo business was just dying after when 2020, like in the early. So like March, April 2020, I'm starting to get phone calls and emails saying, can't do this assignment, cancel. So everything, like the rug just got pulled off from under me, just like so many other people. And I've been a freelance photojournalist for a decade. So I was like, well, shit, I have zero fallback. Like there's zero net, nothing. And my wife, obviously, who's has a very like stable, consistent job. She was the main, the pillar of support for me. And like that, I'm, super grateful for, because if I wouldn't have had her, I don't know what would have happened. I would have figured something out, but I would not be where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So that I'm incredibly grateful for. But my business just, it was the last nail in the proverbial coffin. And I was sitting there like, what do I do? What can I do? And as as a Marine, you've probably heard this, one of my favorite Marine friends, he calls himself a gear queer, and he loves gear. And I'm the same way. Like I love EDC stuff. I love pouches. I love bags. I love backpacks. I love knives. I love guns. Like all gear stuff I love. And I'm always looking at stuff like, hey, this could be better if. So I was like, what if I just tried sewing something simple? What if I just tried to make a pouch? So I'm talking to my mom, and yeah, I'm 38 years old. I talk to my mom. My mom helps me out.
Shout out, Mom.
Thankfully, the basement I'm in is not hers, but nonetheless. And I was talking to her. She has these gnarly embroidery machines. Like she made these. She does like this really cool. Like she does a lot of embroidery and stuff. So she has like some knowledge of sewing. And so we start looking at machines. And she buys me my first domestic sewing machine. It's actually right there. That's that machine right there. She buys it for me, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I start buying materials at like Joann Fabrics and Michaels, and I start watching tons of YouTube videos. And I had never sewn before that machine, ever. So I was like, we're gonna try this, and I start building. A really good friend of mine, her name's Caitlin. She's my brand ambassador. She's the official boogie bag queen. I talked to her. I met her through the rucking community, and I was like, hey, would you be interested? Like, I'll just send them to you. Would you be interested in just like trying some pouches out, just to see how they work in your, gear, carrying, licky chewies and backup, socks and foot kit and stuff like that. She's like, yeah, sure. So those work really well. And I think the official start was in June. So I got my machine in May, and I launched GoodWorks in June. So a month after I got my first ever sewing machine, I have a new business. And
I love it.
Like hours and hours on YouTube, and sitting in a really dimly lit basement, like all the lights that you can see in here, I've added. And just like on this little domestic sewing machine, just learning. So that's how that started. And then the end of 2020, so in September, I launched the Boogie Bag. So from May to September, I learned how to sew, conceptualized the fanny pack, and built it. So and by that time, I outgrew that machine in no time, because it's a heavy duty machine, but the volume that I was sewing, it couldn't handle. So I had to get another machine. So a really good friend of mine, Dan Skidmore, who I also met through GoRuck, he and his wife helped me get another machine. And I worked with them with their company called Ruck Wrap. So the beginning of Good Works, as much as it was my drive and my decision to set, like, to go on a path, was certain, like, it would not have happened without help from others. And so, like, that's a massive thing. Like, it's, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with a team, go with others. And it just kept building. So 21, getting back to where we started, 2021 really helped fortify the community around Good Works. It helped fortify many of the friendships and relationships that I started to build with Good Works. And we spoke about community already. And one of the biggest things for me is the accessibility for people who are interested in Good Works. Like, I don't even care, but it doesn't matter to me if they've bought a boogie bag, if they bought a set of ripcord ruck straps, if they bought a pouch, or if they bought nothing. Yeah, like, I need money to survive. Yeah, I need to make money from a business. Yeah, I need to figure out how I can make more so I can make more money, because that's just part of it. We all need to do these things.
Yeah.
But the most rewarding and resounding thing that has happened with Good Works is the community that's been coming up around Good Works. And that is, to me, is the most meaningful part of it. You have a question? What's your question?
What was the event that I was indoctrinated into 2 weeks ago with all the hats?
Oh, it was yeah, was that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? So I started a while ago Old Fashioned Fridays. And because Old Fashions are my favorite cocktail, I'm super basic when it comes to them. When I say basic, I mean like basic bitch, not like basic.
Yeah.
Man, I like sweet stuff, man. I love sweet drinks. So I usually, my Old Fashions, my cocktails are usually like 6 shots of bourbon, the six ounces of bourbon, 4 ounces of syrup, and cherries, bitters, and a slice of orange. So, like, I have one. It fills a fruit jar. It's a 11, 12 ounce cocktail by the time it's all done. But man, it's delicious. So Old Fashioned Friday kind of became a thing where I would just hop on Instagram Live, and I send out my newsletter, be like, hey, Old Fashioned Friday is, this Friday. This is when we're going to do it. It's going to start at 9 p.m. I try to do it from like 9 to 10 on Friday. So that way, if there's anyone on the West Coast getting out of work, they can still like partake. And then, everyone on the East Coast, it's not like too terribly late if they're going out on Friday or have kids, whatever. So like, I'm trying to get it a decent time for everyone. So that just happened. It just started with Instagram Live, just like hanging out with people asking me questions about products, asking me questions about like, hey, where'd you get the hoodie? Or, what other products are you coming out? Or, what did you do before this? Just conversations about anything. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not there to make money. It's there to communicate and connect and to have fun. And it just turned into something that people have begun to connect with. And what you stumbled upon was the first ever Good Works Old Fashioned Friday Zoom call. So that was the first time that anyone like that I've done like a Zoom where people have been able to like interact aside from like typing on a chat. And I've had other Instagram lives where like Caitlin has come on and we've shared like an Instagram live together, and so we would talk and respond to people. But that was the first ever Zoom, and those are definitely going to happen again because it was a blast.
And it was, and going back to the community subject, it's I was not, what's the word?
Prepared.
I wasn't ready for that, man. I wasn't
Neither
ready.
was I.
And that
I wasn't either.
But it was cool though, just the totally different type of people, the different hats, the T-Rex chicken outfit that popped up somehow. Just,
oh my God.
all these people, I'm assuming, came together because of GW. Good work.
Kind of. So I've met a lot of these people in the rucking community. So I've worked for Go Ruck as a photographer. So I've shot a bunch of events. I got involved in the rucking community in 2013. So I've been part of that community for a few years. I think a lot of people would consider me like an OG GRT. Like my class, my Go Ruck Tough class was like pre class 1000. So like you have like super OGs, and then you have like like it's a whole culture among, you know, it's a whole culture like to itself, right? Which GoodWorks is not that culture, to be clear, and I don't want GoodWorks to be that culture, because it's a completely different thing. So I was working for GoRuck as a photographer. They were sending me out to go shoot events. They say, you know, I shot Selection, which is their top tier event, which is their hardest 48-hour individual event. Very like a 98th percentile fail. Of, you know, it's modeled after the Q course for special forces. So it's a 48-hour beat down, like just obliteration of the mind and body. So I got to shoot that. That was like a bucket list thing for me to shoot. I've gone to DC, I've gone to Philadelphia, I've gone to Pittsburgh, I've shot in Detroit. I was down in Jax Beach. Like I've been all over shooting these events. And when you do that, you meet people. And of course, like they're team events, and some of these events had, you know, hundreds of people. Went to New York City to shoot the 9/11, their 9/11 event, memorial events. So you meet a lot of people with this. And with that, they're like, this is an assumption. I'm non-prior service. But like in the Corps, which I'm assuming that, you know, the adage is, you know, we're all green. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm speaking out, you know, I may be speaking out of turn, which I hope I'm not. But it doesn't matter. Like there's so many walks of life in, we'll stick to the Corps, but I mean, this would go for any of the armed forces, I think. There's so many walks of life, but there's the one thing that brings you together.
Yeah.
And the one thing would be, you're a devil dog.
Yeah.
And that's for everyone. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, what you believe or don't believe in. You know, none of that matters, but you're in the Corps.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's a key, and that's done intentionally with the rucking community. It's like, we're here to go out, do an event together, to suffer together, to be a team together. But we all have different aspects. We all have these different things in our lives that we do. So what you came in on was, you know, different people. And it's not just that. One of the dudes that was there, Sir Hot, was brand new to GoodWorks. He's never rucked. He'd never done a Go Ruck event. He found GoodWorks through an event called Ruckfest, which is another rucking event based in the rucking community, but not Go Ruck. And he's an endurance athlete. He's completed like 50 and 100 milers. And he just like stumbled in on it and was like, oh, this is weird. And I like it. So I'm going to stay. But that's really, you know, what it is. And it's just like this different, it's a community that's different than the standard rucking community. And I really don't want to limit GoodWorks to the rucking community, because I love EDC stuff. I consider GoodWorks an EDC company, or an everyday carry company for folks who don't know EDC. But there's a strong presence of rucking people in the rucking community for, you know, GoodWorks, and that's not going to change. I don't want that to change. But one thing that I want differently about the community that I've been growing is that there needs to be talk about mindset. There needs to be talk about positivity. There needs to be talk of doing good things in the community. It's why my business is called GoodWorks. I was initially going to name it ThreadWorks, and then my buddy Dan says, "Dude, look at your hand." And on the back of my hand, it says "good," and there's an axe through it. And I you know, who doesn't love Jocko, right? Who doesn't love the mindset of like stand by to get some, right? Who doesn't love the mindset of finding a way to shift your perspective, to find a way that like everything is good. Everything is good. Everything. You know, amor fati, love your fate. Everything is good. And I was like, GoodWorks, like, yeah, good. Like I liked it, like game on, like let's go with this. And as someone who's not prior service, it is one of my biggest regrets of my life. My dad and all my uncles were in World War II. That's a whole other story. Generationally, I'm a baby boomer, but I'm not that age. So they were all in World War II. And like, I never really knew my dad. He died when I was 3. So that has like a whole lasting mental effect, you know, throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I have my MEP story. Sure. Yeah, I fucking went to MEPS. Yeah, I got taped. They're like, bro, you're a quarter inch over. You got to wait a month. You got to go work and come back in a month. I'm like, okay, well, fuck that. And like, you know, I've been working and be like, nah, man, like I did the whole fucking saran wrap with the fucking, with the preparation H, like shrink down as much as I could, run in the parking lot and shit beforehand. Like I did all that. Like everybody has their like, I almost did it shit. And I think people are proud of that like they almost did it. But for me, it's like, it's a burden that I carry, because I see like so many people who have, and I'm friends with a lot of folks who are prior service. And it's like, I wish that I would have done that. And I know that I had that in me, but I just didn't. Mm-hmm. So with Good Works, like the onus I feel is on my shoulders to serve those that have. So like I said, I've helped garner over $10,000 for charities, which are all have gone to nonprofits that are veteran based. And I know like 10 grand, it's like, yeah, well, it's really not that much, but it's just, you know, for me, just sewing some stuff and getting this community together. You know, I've had people that have just bought stuff to contribute to the raffles. We've had some We Defy the Norm stuff go out. A friend of mine bought and donated some. So like that's a huge thing for me, and I want to make sure that continues to grow. As my business grows, it's crucial, and it is such a keystone thing for me that the community grows, and that the outreach to the community can affect grows, because I don't think that all the benefits should go to me. It should go outward, you know? So like, that's why like Good Works is named what it's named, because in the community that is based around this business, it is a group of people that believe that, and that are selfless and proud, you know? Like it's something that like in their hearts, they have to do more for others.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, it's beautiful. Seriously. That's such a, because of your heart and the community. No, Good Works, I know, just is going to just grow. From the souls I met, the Sick Suit, it's going to be great.
Dude, Sam is one of a kind, man. He's, you know, that dude is such a character. And he was telling us that he has, I think he said 4 degrees that night. And I was like, what? He has like 2 bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. I'm like, are you? No, like not Sam. Yeah, man. He's such a character, but he's such a good dude. And that's like that's so indicative of that community. And it's just like, and it's so varied. Like there's so many different folks that are involved, and like, but like I was saying, like there's that one common thing, and it's like they just they're selfless. They have no problem being uncomfortable or suffering for others.
Yeah.
And you know, you can go down the road of, you know, life is suffering. Was that, I don't know if that was Carl Jung who said that, or somebody said life is suffering. And I don't really believe that. Like I'm kind of like I've been doing a lot of mind work, and I've been doing a lot of kind of philosophical work, and I've been really working on how I see and perceive things, and how my mind reacts to things, and I don't think that our life needs to be suffering. And I think that much of the suffering that we experience is just self-imposed. And I think that from if you read stuff from the Stoics, like, so this is new to me. I think I've always like kind of felt this, but it's more of it's like when you hear something or you see something or you read something and you're like, and it kind of clicks and you're like, man, I've thought this all the time. Like it's articulated this for me for the first time. Like for the first time, like, holy shit, like this is it. Like I've known this, but I've never known how to articulate it.
Yep.
So I've been reading, the Daily Stoic, and it has Epictetus and Aurelius and Seneca. And there's like a daily thing. And I've also been reading, he's highly contested. I think he's an incredibly intelligent, like brilliant person. I've been reading Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And it's really changing like my mind, and it's really helping my mind grow and evaluate and become much more cognizant and aware of how I perceive things, and learning to identify and recognize things that I control and things that I don't control. I've read Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you can really control is your response, right? Dude was in the most abhorrent situation that you could possibly be in as a human. And he came out on the other side of it with this mindset that you control your environment. Like you don't really control your environment, but you control your reaction to the environment. Like he said, like the final freedom of a man is his choice. Right? I'm paraphrasing, and it's not precise, but he speaks. He talks about that too. So it's I've been working on that. And back to suffering, it's recognizing what you can and cannot control, recognizing how those elements in your environment make you feel, and what you need to do in order to address them, to have clarity, to have stability, to have spiritual and mental fortitude to deal with them. So like there's and the reason I've been learning these things is because I need to, because like I said, 21 was both the best and worst year of my life. And being completely open, man, like I've sat on the floor back there with my head in my hands more times than I care to count. I've fucking sat behind these machines just crying, like out of it, and just wading through the depths, man, like just being in like the darkest place and not really like wanting to continue, and not good works. I mean, not wanting to continue life.
Yeah.
And there's so many good and beautiful and amazing things about this life, but it was so difficult for me. And much of it just being self-imposed, much of it being my perception on different factors in my life, right? And it's amazing how you can just pull the wool over your own eyes.
Yeah.
And not really see. And I'm not saying like look at the world with like rose-colored glasses. I'm not saying like make your world a hyperbole. I'm not saying be a fucking, Instagram influencer and, have your fucking, your fit tee and your booty shots and my life is so fucking great. I'm posing on a car that I rented for the day. And like, I'm not talking about that, but have like, find like a real perception of like the good things that are in your life. Like this morning, it was like 1 degree out and it's garbage day today. And like, I woke up with a shitty attitude today. Like I just woke up and I was just like, no, like I'm not having today. Like today is just bad. Like I don't want today. And I recognize that. So it's the first step, is saying like, okay, like look, I'm in a bad headspace right now. Like I need, like, this can change. I'm in my garage breaking down boxes and stuff because I suffer from a thing called Amazonesia. where I just get random.
Okay.
Yeah. Where I just get, boxes of stuff from Amazon. And then what I do is I just chuck them out my garage door into a pile in the garage. So then I get like a mountain of boxes. So I'm out there, I'm freezing, and I'm like, my hands like hurt. And I'm just like breaking these boxes down so I can get this mountain of fucking Amazon boxes out of my garage. And I'm wheeling the garbage can out, and I turn around and I look, because my driveway is westward facing, and I turn around and I look, and the sun's coming up, and it was like cotton candy, like these beautiful like hues of like pink and blue and yellow, and like there's a little bit of clouds, and like I have a couple of pines in my backyard, and I was like, man, it's fucking beautiful. Like, just took a moment and was just like, wow, like it's gorgeous. Like, why should I be angry about today? No. Like this is silly. And of course, it's not an instant switch. Like, you have to put work in, and it's not an instant thing. It's like, yeah, I still carried it with me, like the things that I have to do, but it's like so much of that, of the suffering and the pain is put on yourself by yourself. So this last year has just been like, man, just like wading through it, just like so many times it's just been like really dark for me.
Yeah.
And like wanting to quit, period. Like not quit a little bit, but quit
all the way.
All the way. And like when I was a kid, I attempted. I was in 8th grade, I think. And I think, I don't know that I would actually have the courage to do it, which is kind of like a good and bad thing. But when I was a kid, like I attempted, and I think it was more so like a thing for attention. I was one of those kids that had like the metal t-shirts and the fucking big pants and the chain wallets. Dude, I had like, my chain wallet was like down, it would like hit my kneecap because it was so long.
Yeah.
I threw it over I had a sliding door on my shower, threw it over their shower, threw it around my neck, and I wound up in a facility for a couple weeks over the holidays. Like, and my time, like I ended up, like I told my best friend, and I ended up giving that chain to them afterwards. And I was a kid, like 8th grade, like, so that was like, I was 15. Like, what could be like so awful at like 15? And like my life wasn't like awful. Like, I never had to worry about a place. Well, that's not completely true. At that time, I hadn't had to worry about a place to live. I never worried about food. I never worried about having like extra stuff. But it was like, what was so bad that it would cause me to do that? And then, this last year, there were so many times where it's like, man, like I've got, other way, I have like that sitting in my basement. I don't know if you can make out what that is, but I'm not going to change the camera to see it. But I'm a firm believer that we need to protect ourselves and our homes and our loved ones. So I have the tools in my home to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, those tools can be used otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the leading and one of the leading causes of firearm deaths is self-imposed.
Yeah.
And man, I've thought about it a lot. Have I ever like gone through the motions and do it? No. And I won't, and I wouldn't, because there's too much. Like, there is way too much here. There's so much here that is worth being here for.
So on that subject, and kind of changing out the lens a little bit,
mm-hmm.
you get that metaphor. Those times of darkness, if for whatever reason we have someone watching this right now and it's 2:00 in the morning and they're there, do you have any tips, anything that you've done to get yourself out of those holes?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me is, you're not alone.
Yeah. Amen.
there's always somebody that has experienced it. There's always someone that's experienced it. There's always somebody that's been there. There's always somebody that's brought themselves out of it. And there is a way out. And sometimes some people can do it alone, but it's rare. And I think a lot of people associate it with a weakness. And I think a lot of people associate it with whether or not like you're good enough, whether or not you're supposed to be here, whether or not, you know, there's so many what ifs.
Yeah.
But for me, the biggest thing is knowing that there's people there that have gone through what I've gone through and may go through. Like, I'm hoping not, but like I know that I'm gonna have difficult times in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have that. And you know, of course, some of us, like, to, you know, a greater extent than others, but there's somebody there. Like, there's always somebody that you can talk to. There's always somebody who has been through like the worst of it. And when you can find a person like that you can relate to, that understands like the darkness that is just so overwhelming and so wholly consuming, that has worked their way beyond that, it's massive. It's massive. And you know, I have friends that have experienced that too, that have experienced like these awful lows, that have tried or have been very close to trying to fucking leave. No, fuck that. That have been very close to trying to kill themselves. Right? Like, there's no point in like saying, like, making some euphemism for that. Like, there's people who have tried, and I know them, and who have tried or who have been close. And it's like, you need those people because they're still here for a reason. Like, you've talked about that. And it's so incredibly cathartic to speak with somebody who's been there. And it's so, I don't want to say reassuring because I don't think that's accurate, but it's good to know that somebody has walked that path, though it's their own, to go beyond that and to grow out of that, and to really like struggle and pull themselves up. And it's work. Like anything else, it's work. You have to put the work in. You have to be diligent. You have to be mindful. You have to not let that shit soak into your brain and consume you, because it takes a little step. It's a little step. It's just like, oh, you know, no, I had a bad day or whatever, or I had this one little thing, like, you know, the trigger, right? Once you know your triggers, you shut that shit down. And it's like, if you get ticked, like if it actuates, and it's like, okay, like, I know I'm pissed, I know I'm sad, I know I'm overwhelmed, like I can feel it closing in. That's your opportunity to say, fucking no, you're stopping. And so you're not alone. Know your triggers, and know that there is, don't let the bullshit on social media fool you. Don't let the news fool you. Don't let the programming fool you. Like, you're good enough and you're worthy and you should be here. Like, that's it. And if anyone ever wants to talk to me about this, send me a message. I will talk to anyone and everyone. Like, this is, and I know it's so hard to admit that. And it's so challenging to be open, especially because there's, and you know, like I previously stated, I'm not prior service, but it seems from an outside view that there's a massive stigma based around it, even more so in the armed forces community than just civilian life.
Yeah.
Where discussing and talking about mental health and mental stability and issues and struggles is like, nah, like we don't want to address that because it's too personal, or it's too scary, or too whatever. And like, that's such horse shit. And it's just like, if you're having a hard time, reach out. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's why we have friends, man. Like, I have friends that have fucking helped me stand up on my own 2 feet and dusted me off. And it's not coddling. It's not the faux positivity bullshit. It's not the false claps and the false cheering and like, yeah, you can do it. It's not that. It's like, get up. I'm going to dust you off, get your shit together, and let's go. And I'm going to help you, and I'm going to be there with you. It's not this like, hey, you can do it. Great job.
No, it's real love.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Love is like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And I mean, first, right off the bat, brother, sincerely, from me and whoever the hell watches this, thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for being such an awesome, rad dude.
Thanks.
Just for who you are.
Thank
you. And I understand what you're saying. If I ever had the ability to be a ghost of Christmas past to my former self, I would have told myself to keep going through that Rolodex of contacts. Every single person until it's stuck with some one person. But I believe, though, at least for myself, that everything's happened for a reason, and it's gotten me to this point, which I am entirely grateful for. And that took a lot of growth for me. And I'm not saying this to shift the spotlight. I'm, one, giving you a chance to catch your breath, and two, just to relate to it. And I get what you're saying, and it's important when you do identify those triggers, those stuck points, those firecrackers, that you are cognizant in your growth. And I feel like, please correct me if I'm wrong, BAS, Good Works, they are tools of sustainability. They are resources for others as well, through communication services, whatever. And at the same time, for me, and I'm not sure about you because I don't want to talk on you, it's also checks and balances and accountability, where one, with this, talking about BAS, with the services I provide, I have to practice what I preach first and foremost, because I would never want to guide anyone down the wrong path or do anything that I've done. And at the same time, with consistently growing, healing, recovering, identifying triggers, maybe new ones, that accountability is, I gotta take care of myself, even on those days when all I want to do is just stay in bed. It's that good opportunity to show up for myself and for others, and maybe learn a thing or two from that shitty day that I have that can potentially help some. So,
yeah. You know, I never, we speak a lot about intent and intention and being mindful of what we're doing and why we're doing it, what affects it. And the intent for Good Works was never, initially was never a community growth thing. It was never a, hey, you know what, like I'm gonna focus on getting a community around Good Works, and I'm just gonna, and I'm gonna try to leverage Good Works to build a community. Like that was never a thought. For me, it was, hey, I like this stuff. I'm decent with my hands. I pick up on stuff. and I can make stuff for my friends. That's cool. And while I'm doing that, like, I need to make sure that I'm also creating positive change, and I'm not taking everything for me. It's important that I give, and it's important that I use whatever leverage I can to benefit others. It's important for me because of what I carry, that I serve others. So the whole, like, I'm relatively private about certain things. I mean, a lot of us are very, very open about everything. And there's certain things, like certain aspects that I won't discuss. But the more I'm involved in paying attention to, like, Cody and yourself, and Jules, embodiment by Jules, and then Chuck, Chuck Your Ego, like all these different, I'm seeing all these things, right? And just like sharing and vulnerability and openness. And I'm a mostly open person. Privately, if you ask me something, I'm going to tell you the truth about it. Like, I'm an open person. So, like, seeing that, and then working on working through, like, these just pathways that this past year has I don't want to say given me, because where we are now is a result of what we've done in the past. And where we are now is, you said everything happens for a reason. So I'm here for a multitude of reasons. I've experienced, now granted, yeah, like, I can't control that my brain has been scrambled and, rewired because of a head injury. And, TBIs have a massive impact on depression. Mm-hmm. And I certainly suffer from that. So I have no control over that, and that's okay. But there's things that I can do to control that. Like, there's things that I can do to not control that, but to control my perception of it and control what I do about it. So I never thought that Good Works would have the type of community that will, like, really listen, or really, I shouldn't have said they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't. That there wouldn't be a community around Good Works where that would really matter, I guess is the way of now. If we address mindset and we discuss mindset, you can look at the core, like the group of Good Works community, like the core group of the Good Works community, and many of them are involved in endurance events, endurance athletics, military-based endurance athletics, rucking, and that all has to do with mindset. It all has to do with that, because somebody who's kind of about it, they're not doing those things. Someone's kind of doesn't go out and do a 50 miler. Someone's kind of doesn't go out and do a 12-hour military-based endurance event. Like, that's just not how it works. Like, those people aren't there. So as I was like, and I'm still like, it's always a work in progress. There's always work that needs to be done. And I'm finding that through diligence and repetition and consistency, that's what makes, like, the biggest changes. Which is it's well known. Everybody knows that. Simple, but not easy. That the more, like, when I post stuff, it's stuff that helps me. So it's not necessarily about accountability per se, but it's about sharing what's working for me and helping me, in the hopes that, hey, someone else might see this and it might help them.
Yes.
And it costs me nothing. It literally costs me nothing. It takes me 3 seconds to go, oh, you know what? Hey, I like this. I'm gonna repost this on my stories to somebody else, if they're working on their mindset like I am. Like, they'll see this too, and then they can get a benefit from this. Like, the challenge that you're doing right now, like 1 hour a week outside. It took me nothing to do that. It's something that I support, and it's something that I do. Yep. Now that's partially accountability. Like, I've been rucking again, like, more. So getting an hour outside is no problem. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where it's like, man, that's easy. So why wouldn't I share this? Granted, I'm not going to share everything, because then it gets diluted and yeah, the message is lost, and you have to have some sort of edit. but I really hope, actually, I don't hope, the surveys that I've been receiving from customers and potential customers through GoodWorks have been overwhelmingly positive. In fact, I've gotten over 40 of them, I think, and there hasn't been a negative thing said. Now, granted, a lot of times people who are kind of like, don't really want to do it, so they just don't do it. But generally, it's the people who are super pissed off that want to give somebody a piece of their mind, or somebody who's like really happy. So I haven't gotten the super pissed off person yet.
If you want, I'll pull mine back and I can send a pissed off one.
If you want to, you can. But you know, one person said to me, and man, it fucking hit me so hard. They said, no matter what you're like, he's like, no matter like how hard, like how high you climb, you're always looking back to pull somebody else up with you. And I was just like, fuck. Like that somebody said that to me is like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
And I'm doing something that's like important. And you can look at it like, yeah, man, I'm making nylon shit in my basement and slinging fanny packs. Fine. Yeah. But it's important to me that it's more than that. It has to be more than that. It can't just be that. It can't be a business with no face, with no empathy, with no care, with no like, I don't want my business to be purely transactional because that's not fucking good enough. Like, period. If yeah, like there's business people and like I get that, and like their thing is like, I want to make money, and that's all I want to do is make money. And that's okay, man. Like if you want to run your life that way, then that's you. We're all different, right? Yeah, I want to make money. Dude, I want to get my business like Tom Bin. Like I want a $6.69 million annual revenue. I want 60 employees. Like I want to make badass shit that doesn't break, that doesn't fail. I want to make it here in the States. But no matter how big this little business gets, no matter like where the reach goes, it's always going to be here. This company will never get offshore. Like I may have to get components offshore. I may end up having to like send some of my stuff to be automated to save time so I can build space to build a business. Like I may have to have stuff cut for me. I'm gonna have to have stuff cut for me, or I'm gonna have to find a way to automate it myself. But this business will always be here, and this business will always be personal. Like I write a note in every single package because every single one of those matters to me, because it gets me food, it gets me heat, it pays for these lights, it pays for the machines that I'm on, it pays for the thread, it pays for the fabric. And with that, it provides me a standard of living. And it provides me the ability to stand on my own 2 feet, which has been a struggle for me for a long time. So I'm always accessible. Anyone can send me a DM, an email. Dude, I had a text from a random dude the other day. Like I'm used to, like I've had a website for over a decade with my contact information on it. I'm used to being contacted by random people. I will answer every single message as long as I see it. I will respond to every single email. I will respond to every single text. I will respond to every single DM. And that's how GoodWorks is going to stay. And like, I don't care how big it gets. Like you can look at Gary Vee, and Gary Vee is like a big, he's a big proponent of caring about what you do. Like you have to care, because if you don't care, people fucking know. People know when you don't give a shit. People know, people can see when your eyes are dead that you don't care. And people don't want to be involved in that. Like it's faceless bullshit. Like who cares? But GoodWorks is something where there's always going to be that care, and there's always going to be that empathy, and there's always going to be that work in the community to do. And there's always going to be pushing forward. And I'll help anyone. Like I've helped people start to learn to sew. I'm not saying this to validate myself, and I'm not saying this to
community.
Yeah, it's I'm not doing it for me. Like I'm doing it to help other people because there's enough for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a amazing conversation. Honestly, I feel love, brother, sincerely. I've taken a lot out of this. I've taken a few notes at the same time. This almost feels like an ignorant question at this point. Is there any other lessons of note to share with anyone? I feel like you've probably hit 47.
Yeah. Okay. As I've been making this pathway to like introspection, like Cody talks a lot about, like, you have to turn inward and you have to free yourself. You have to learn yourself and you have to free yourself. You have to enable yourself to accept what is, and you have to enable yourself to accept yourself, right? And as I'm going down like this path and this journey, I'm learning that people say, oh, I want to be happy. I want happiness. I want happiness. Like, my goal in life is to be happy. And I'm starting to hear that, and I'm hearing it in a different way. And this is going to be contradictory to so many people, but happiness is fucking overrated. And life is not about being happy. In my mind, and this is solely my opinion, but happiness should be a byproduct. Happiness should not be the end all be all. Happiness shouldn't be the goal. Man, I can find happiness in a fucking dopamine hit. I can find happiness in a like. I can find happiness in somebody fucking stroking my ego, sending me a nice email. Like, sure, I'm fucking happy for a moment. That doesn't mean anything, right? Happiness is not the end all be all of life. So I say, set happiness aside and look for fulfillment. Look for purpose. Look for something that makes you want to grow. Look for something that challenges your mindset and causes you and catalyzes you to expand your mind and your horizons. And as you do that, you're going to be like, you know what? Like, I'm happy about this. You're not seeking out the happiness. You're seeking out the fulfillment. You're seeking out the purpose. You're seeking out a reason to be driven. And look, like, my purpose and fulfillment is not to make fucking nylon pouches, right? That's not it. But it's a vehicle. It transports me there. It's a means. Mm-hmm. So push happiness aside. Don't focus on happiness. Like, I watched a Peterson clip the other day, and he said, you know, if you experience happiness, enjoy it for all you can. But that's not it. It's
just an emotion that is fleeting like the rest of them.
Hence why it should be a byproduct. Mm-hmm. And another thing that he said is, you know, well, he does the hypothetical situation of, okay, well, you say you want to be happy in life, you want to work to being happy, towards being happy, excuse me, but then you say your father dies. Are you going to work towards being happy at your father's funeral? Is that something you want to work toward? No. Something that you would want to work toward is being the strongest person there with the mental and emotional fortitude to support other people that you care about. Mm-hmm. Like, happiness, like, you can save that for later. You can save that for whenever it comes about. But having that as a main focus, I think is a greatly misconstrued thing in our culture and our society, where it's like we're just looking for that hit. We're looking for that, like, oh, I fucking feel good. But it's hollow. It's hollow and it's empty, and it leads to nothing, because after the happiness is gone, then what?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think that pursuit of happiness, how it's described from others, is impossible. I think it is a double-edged sword, that if that's all that you pursue,
Yeah.
you can't achieve it. You can't achieve it, because everything, all emotions are required.
So one thing another thing that, like, that I've been learning is, and I've known it for a long time, but everything is temporary. There is nothing permanent in life.
Amen.
Nothing will last forever. Nothing. The sun doesn't last forever. The earth isn't going to last forever. Oxygen in the air is not going to last forever. Everything is temporary. If you go on a large enough scale, everything goes away, right? So in our lives, you going from macro to micro. In our lives, everything's temporary. Happiness is temporary. Sadness is temporary. Hard work is temporary. Discipline is temporary. Motivation is extremely temporary. So everything is temporary, right? And that sounds like, if you just hear that and don't really think about it, it's like, wow, that's like a really negative way to look at things. But it's not. It's completely opposite of that. It is a realistic way of looking at things and going, you know what? If everything is temporary, that means as soon as this moment of happiness is gone, then what? So that's why having a purpose and having some sort of, like, finding fulfillment completely trumps that. It makes happiness, like, just disappear, because it's a byproduct. Because when you're doing something that you care about, when you're doing something that you find, like, real, like, satisfaction and fulfillment, like, in your being, in your soul, then it comes and it happens.
Yeah.
So why seek the end product when you can seek the way to create it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, and I think the intention is there correctly with everyone,
Yeah.
but I think the something right here I wrote up a couple days ago about happiness. I think happiness just needs to be redefined. I think it's misunderstood by a lot of people that are strictly having happiness in their crosshairs.
Mm-hmm.
I think the state of happiness should simply be the appreciation of what is, and what is to come, whatever that is. And I think if you remove the joyous dopamine hits and, like you said, transfer it over to gratitude, fulfillment, the present, I think it will, the standard definition, the roots will flourish through that.
Yeah, it's a byproduct. I really think, in my opinion, and in my mind, I think, like, the best definition of it is that it's a byproduct.
Yeah.
Is that it's something that it's a result of something, but seeking that, it's just like when you start your car and you let your car run, you let it idle, like, to warm up in the winter or whatever, and then the first time you hit that accelerator, you get water coming out of your tailpipe, because the water is a byproduct of the combustion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the thing is, like, we're not trying to get water out of our tailpipe. We're trying to drive our car. But there's the byproduct. It kind of happens along the way, right? So it's just, I think that if we were to change that perspective and really think about finding fulfillment and purpose and gratitude, which I've left out, but that's also massively important, that it would change the narrative around it.
Yeah.
And
cool. Yeah, it's just, and it's such a layered thing, because I know at the same time, with the lust for happiness, it is also okay, I'm kind of shooting into the stratosphere on this one. At the same time, it's avoidance, because happiness is positive, happiness is light, and obviously people want to talk about boogie bags and stuff like that and not talk about the dark, when that is essentially where everything comes from.
All right, so for one,
there we go.
Without dark there is no light.
Yep.
Right, we have to have contrast in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have that. Like, people, like, if you think of like a photograph, and we're gonna use Instagram as like as the way to discuss this. Okay, you're talking about how you're shooting in the stratosphere by saying that happiness was what did you say it was again? Can you remind me? It's
joy, it's the light. It's not, it's the avoidance of the dark, the heavy stuff.
Yeah, you said it's an avoidance, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's exactly right. I don't think you're shooting into the stratosphere at all. I think that that's here. You don't need to shoot to the stratosphere. It's here, right? It is exactly what a large amount of social media is, because people are only showing the light. People are only showing it, and they're avoiding the things that they deal with. Like,
or they're manufacturing the light when it's not even there.
Fine. Like, they're showing it, right? But it could be manufactured. And I try to be real with who I am. And I try to be genuine, because nobody likes fake people. Like, and it serves nobody. And if you're fake, like, it's a disservice to yourself. So, going along with the analogy of Instagram, you'll see that people will put on these filters on their faces, right? And they put the filters on, and what a lot of times the filters do is they remove contrast. Because what it does is, you're a photographer, you know what I'm talking about. So what'll happen is, say you have hard light, and like I have these like jowls, I have like these cheeks here because of my pudgy face, but you get these hard lines here, right? And because that's from hard light creating hard shadows, and that's contrast. So these filters will remove contrast to make people's skin look smoother. It'll make it look nice, like glowy. What it also does is it removes depth. It also will make somebody look like they have a flat nose or no nose at all, because it pulls the contrast from around the face to show that there's actually shadow and black point around the nose to show that there's depth to it. So it's like, you could use that as a metaphor or an analogy to lightness and darkness in life. And you could use that as an analogy, as like using happiness as a tool of avoidance, by strictly focusing on, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. This is what I have to show for me being happy. But really, it's like, my home life is a fucking mess. I'm spiraling out, my debt's spiraling out of control. I'm unhealthy. I don't have a regular sleep schedule. It could be like all these things. Mm-hmm. But no, we're gonna focus on the happy. So I think when you say it's an avoidance thing, I think you're totally accurate. I think that shooting into the stratosphere is way too high. I think you got to shoot right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Well,
while you're thinking, I have a something else I do want to touch on too, that you have brought up. You recently posted about failure, and you've posted about it like a couple of times. I'm sure multiple times. And I think that also failure is misconstrued as well. And dude, I'm a huge failure. Like, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say that I'm a failure. However, I have failed many times. And I failed at my first marriage. I failed at working for somebody else. Like I can't work for other people. And no matter how many times I've tried, I can't do it. I failed at my photography career. I've failed at building myself a stable and steady life. I fail at saving money. I fail at being intelligent with money. I fail at continued prolonged physical fitness. I fail at continued prolonged healthy eating. And these are all things that are simple, but not easy, right? For a lot of people. But the thing is, though, is if you continue to failed in my photo business. I started a coffee business that failed. It was even a flash in the pan, and it failed. But the thing is every time you do that, every time you fail, if you learn, then you're never in the same spot, right? And without failure, you can't build from, you have nothing to build from. So I had a friend who was who was struggling, and they were like, I keep failing. And like, I'm just going back. And when you fail, you never go back to the same place. You never do. And it doesn't matter what it is. Because unless you have some like memento type amnesia, right? Like you're going to have these experiences and these emotions and memories that are going to prevent you from ever being in the same place again.
Yeah.
Like I said, everything is temporary. So you can fail. And man, like, I hope I fail so many more times in my life, because if I don't, I'm never going to learn, because you don't really learn from success.
Mm-hmm.
And like my, the second rendition I had of my ripcord ruck straps, like they're super simple, man. It's just like a strap you put in the webbing on your pack, so you can put your hands in. As you know, you have a ruck on your pack, and it's it constrains the circulation going to your hands. You get the sausage fingers. You lose all the dexterity in your hands. Man, I tried texting after a ruck the other day, and it was like 10 degrees out. Like I felt like there was like my hands were like wrapped in jello trying to manipulate my phone. So the ruck straps you just hold on to, and that's it. That's all I do. You can use it to like distribute the load. You can kind of like push forward. So if you need to adjust your load, you can, whatever, just get a little relief, whatever. The second generation I made of them, because I'm learning as I go, is they had the hardware on them was polymer, and there's a little metal clip. So when it's unclipped, it's weak. It's just polymer, right? The first rendition was all metal. It was a G hook, but they kept falling out because people kept losing them because they don't pay attention to their gear. People in general, this is kind of negative, but it's kind of the truth, don't have a very good attention to detail.
It's not negative at all.
People don't like to track their gear. People don't like to pay attention to the stuff that's on their person, right? They don't have methods. They don't have SOPs, right? So I was like, okay, people are losing these, so I need to find a solution that's going to clip in, so that way they're not going to lose them, but it'll still be easy for them to take off. So I find this hardware. It's polymer with a little metal clasp. I'm like, this is perfect. Like, you're not lifting a lot of heavy shit with it. It'll be totally fine. It'll clip in. You're good to go. A week after I sent them out, I started getting these emails like, hey man, this broke. Are you replacing these? Are you going to replace these? And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, send me a picture. So everybody sent me pictures, and they're exactly the same. And what was happening is, which I don't want to say people were lying to me, but at the same time, I also I think that they just weren't being cognizant of what was really happening. As I've tested them myself, what I think was happening is they were putting load on their rip cords while the clasp wasn't engaging, and just snapping the polymer as they went to adjust the ruck. So pop. So I was like, okay, and in my mind, I think I gotta a decent amount of emails, enough where it was like I needed to rethink this. So in my mind, that's a failure. That was a product failure. And so what do? I can say, oh well, fuck it. Like it was just a failure. It is what it is, and it's gone. It's done. That's the end of it. I'm gonna quit. Or I go, you know what? Like here's a problem. Here's a problem with the first one. Here's a problem with the second one. How can I make it better for the third one? So I consider that a failure. It was a failure in product. It was a failure in research. It was a failure in design. It was a failure in manufacturing. So then I have the Mark III ripcords, which are aluminum, so they're still light, and they have a spring. They have a spring-loaded gatekeeper on them, so you can clip it in, and you don't have to attach it. You don't have to make sure it's like you just push it in, and it's good. So the load dispersion is not reliant on a clip to hang on a little piece of metal that'll pop off. I've gotten 0 emails regarding them. So TLDR, right? That was I talk a lot. Oh, that reminds me of one other thing I can talk about too. TLDR, right? You fail at something, it's okay. Failure is okay. It's accepted, and it's like. And when you fail fucking fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck up fast, get it over with, and move on.
Yeah. Don't prolong it.
If you sit and dwell on it, all it's going to do is it's going to rack your brain. You're going to fuck yourself up, and you're going to get into a dark spot where you don't want or need to be. Figure out what the problem is, identify your trigger, and address it. So in context of the ripcords, hardware was crap. It didn't fulfill the needs of people who were using them. People weren't paying attention and using them. So like you have to use lowest common denominator for stuff that you make. So it's like, okay, aluminum, so it's not steel, so it's not as strong, and a spring-loaded gate that nobody has to worry about. Click, you're good to go. Yep. So I use that failure to move forward. So no matter how many times you fail, no matter what you fail in, like you're never going to go back to the same place, ever, unless you have really bad amnesia.
That's why I laughed earlier. You brought me back to Memento after so many years of seeing that.
It's on HBO right now. So if you have HBO,
okay,
it's on there. I'm totally gonna watch it.
Oh man.
one thing that I wanted to address too, like I don't know if you want to like cut this in or whatever. Another aspect that has been a severe struggle for me is isolation. And when you're alone, you get in your head. When you're alone, you become very introspective. And you have to learn to sit with yourself. You spoke about this when you were sick.
Yeah.
You spoke about that like when you were isolated from people and you're sick and you were sick. So you have to learn to sit with yourself. And this last year, like I said before, I work in the basement, and in the part of the basement I'm in, there's no windows. So a lot of days, like I'm up before the sun, and by the time I leave my workshop, it's dark outside. So like on those days when I'm just in the workshop, I don't see sunlight. And I was working on crazy schedules, and I've worked on like about a month now. I've been going to bed at 22 and waking up at 05 or close to there. So like I've been on that schedule and on that path, and that's helped my mindset drastically. But the isolation this last year was really, really, really challenging. I don't leave my home very often. And it's not because of coronavirus. It's not because of any of that. It's just because this is where I work. This is where I live. And, you know, when my wife she lived an hour and a quarter north of me, and she had the home that we live in. And so I moved out of my area. So I moved away from my friends. And so now what, you know, that's caused like, you know, I don't see my friends as much as I used to. And also I'm of the age where my friends are having kids, They're, you know, a lot of them are married. A lot of them have businesses that they run or have, you know, full-time jobs. And so it's really difficult, like scheduling that and getting that in, right? So often I feel extremely isolated. And most weeks go by and the only other person that I see is my wife. And I'm a firm believer that you need friends in your life. You need other people in your life aside from your significant other in order to have an enriching and uh, fulfilling life. I think that you need to have interpersonal relationships with other people than your significant other, because you need to be able to talk to those people. You need to be able to communicate with them. Like if I'm having a problem with my wife, yeah, I need to address that with her. But at the same time, it also helps to address that with a friend that you trust, so that way you can like suss things out, right? Yep. So that way you don't go in and with overwhelming emotion and end up saying or doing something that you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. So that's been a massive hurdle for me, and which is another reason why the community around GoodWorks has been so beneficial. Because like I said earlier, I've solidified just really strong friendships through this. And that's so significant, so important to me. And I have grown to know people, you know, like deeply, and getting and being part of the community it's affording me the ability to get to know people and to listen to people and to hear their stories and for them to share like these aspects of their lives with me. And look, I've been told before that I'm a disarming person. And that was a reporter from the Wall Street Journal told that to me. And he said that to me when we were going around in Flint talking to people that were affected by the water crisis, that had lead in their pipes and that were getting like literally poisoned by the water coming out of their faucets. So when he said that to me, like that was an incredible compliment. And especially considering what I was doing at the time, because with that job, a lot of times you're interacting with people on really bad days. They're having like bad days. And tact is so incredibly important when it comes to that, and humility and empathy. And doing that job taught me that in order for people to be open with you, you need to be open with them. You can't just take. Like as a photographer, as a photojournalist, often I felt like I was a vulture, because like, oh, like here's the story. Let's flock around the story. Let's take advantage of it. And we're going to take and give nothing back. And you can't do that. Like an example, I went to Wayne State University, and for the first time, like in forever, they finally made it to like their Class D football championship. So like their football program is like non-existent, but they made it to this like championship game. Earlier in the year, one of the players, he died. I don't remember if like he was a car accident or whatever. And I went to it was down in, I think the game was down in Georgia. So like in their student center, they were broadcasting, they were like screening the game. And in the front row was a group of kids, and like they had his jersey and like they had his number and like they had like a sign and stuff. And they were like close friends with this kid that died. And they lost the game, unfortunately. But throughout the coverage, they keep showing the helmets of all the players, and they have the kid's number on their helmet, like in memoriam of him, right? And so I'm like crouched down underneath the screen that's being projected. So I have my lens trained on them, and I'm 10 or 15 feet away. I already introduced myself. I told them why I was there. I explained who I was shooting for, and I got all their names and everything like that. Like as a photojournalist, for a lot of publications, you're required to get name and age and where they live, because that's like a form of consent that the newspaper can publish their likeness. I did all that. I built rapport with them. I spoke with them. I was like, they knew why I was there. I was good. So they were showing like a memorial thing on like during the game for the kid. And like these poor kids, they're just like crying their eyes out, like just sob, like just sad. And I see another photographer from another news organization come in, and I'm shooting like you'll understand this language. It was pretty dim, and I was shooting low light stuff, like so, like super high ISO. I didn't want to use a flash. I was really practically too far away from them to use a flash, so I'm just like shooting, wide open aperture, high ISO, kind of low shutter speed, just so I can like give them their privacy,
Yeah. Yeah.
And this photographer comes in and just starts blitzing them, just like on camera flash, like speed light on there, just blasting them. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? And there has to be tact, and there has to be so like I'm accustomed to like meeting and approaching people when they're in like not good spaces, and and so I think that has translated into my business, like again TLDR, that's translated into good works in the community around good works, that I'm approachable, and like I said before, I'll talk to anybody, and I don't want anyone to have any sort of hesitation to message me about whatever. I mean, except maybe like I don't care about your OnlyFans and your feet pictures. But
well, come on.
Sorry, dude. I'm sorry to dash your dreams. Alas. But that's like part of the thing about the community of good works. And actually, as we're talking about this, I think I should really put together a type of, I don't want to say mission statement because I don't think that's accurate, but I think like some sort of statement about the community that's based around good works, and what the community like really stands for. Because in the community that it's our community, but it's my community at the same, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I won't tolerate bullshit. If you're openly seen, like if there's any like poor, if I hear of any like poor interactions from anyone, if I see it on any of my posts, on any of my stories, they're fucking gone. And I'm one of those people that, like, dude, if you told me that you needed help getting the fuck out of Chicago, I would drive my ass to Chicago and help you get out of Chicago. Like, that's the type of person that I am. So if someone were in there like disparaging somebody else, especially if it's somebody that's close to me, it's fucking game over. They're gone, period. So like that shit won't be tolerated. Like they have Wednesdays in another group where it's kind of like silly and stuff, and that's fine. And we get really fucking silly, as you've witnessed. But actual like negative connotation and negative activity will not be tolerated in the good works community, because it's strictly about building each other up and building up other communities, and that's it, period.
Amen. Love it. First and foremost, at the end, don't hang up. For everybody that has made it this far in this video segment,
you're gonna do some little bit of chopping
for maybe, or I'm just gonna send it live.
Send it.
I hope everyone learned a thing or two out of this. And from myself to you personally, brother, thank you for giving me 90 minutes to get to know you, the company, the community, all of it.
My pleasure, man. When you asked me about this, like there was no question. Absolutely. Like this is look, like what you're trying to do with Back Azimuth is like I said, like it's important to me to serve the veteran community, and I think that you're going to be connecting with a lot of them based on your background. So if there's any way that I'm able to help you get your message out, and that we can put push your business forward, like I'm happy to do that. It costs me nothing. Like it takes a little bit of time, but look, man, we're having a conversation, and clearly I converse. So when you approached me about that, I'm like it was a no factor, no question thing, like absolutely. And I think we linked via Cody,
I think so.
And We Defy the Norm. So and like we both stated, like I am a huge supporter of Cody and his message, and and who he is as a person. Like not we've had conversation and stuff, and it's not like a, he's done like FaceTime me and stuff, and we've talked, and so it's like this isn't just like an impersonal thing, which I think people are grasping about Good Works. It's very personal, and it's very intimate, and it's very important. So I am more than happy to help people who are trying to better themselves and better their communities in any way that I can. So if that means I share a post, like rad, like that's easy. If that means I come and talk to you about, and explain my story a little bit in the hopes that someone in your community benefits from it, that's easy, man. That's nothing. So like, it was really humbling for you to ask me to come on. Like that was, a really, to have somebody value my opinion is important. Yeah. And as like, maybe I should rephrase that. Have somebody value my opinion is humbling, and it is like enriching and empowering. So I think it's like a mutual thing. So when it's like, if I can help, man, I'm my purpose in life is to serve, and it may not have been with an M4. It may not have been with a fucking ruck on my back, or jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, or working with tracks, or scanning for fucking IEDs, or any of that shit. But at this point in time, like, this is how I'm serving, and this is like my purpose. Like, it's to serve. Because if you don't have like that intent and that purpose with your life, then it's so much more difficult to get through life, and life is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And without that, like, what do you do to move forward? Like, you have to find that thing that helps you move forward. So, and this is part of it.
Yeah, brother, I definitely appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it.
Awesome. And this concludes the recording.